Jai Guru, everyone. Good morning here. Welcome to this special satsang with Nayaswami Jyotish Ji and Devi Ji. Good evening to you. It's a special time that we eagerly look forward to with spending this morning with you, Jyotish Ji and Devi Ji. Those of us who know them, there is no introduction needed. Last time I had given them a title that they are our spiritual guardians, that they encourage us, support us in many ways, and guide us to live the teachings as Master has brought to Swamiji and through Swamiji to them, to us. So thank you so much for joining us. And those of you who are meeting them for the first time, I would just like to give a brief introduction about them. Nayaswami Jyotish Ji and Devi Ji live in Ananda Village, California, USA. Right now they are at their place. It's 8:30 p.m. and it's almost time to go to bed, but they are with us. And they have been with Ananda since the beginning, and they have served with Swami Kriyananda Ji along the sides for many decades. What they bring to us is the legacy that Swami Kriyananda Ji has left. They just carry forward that legacy. They go all around the world, guiding us, supporting us, encouraging us, so that we live the teachings and carry forward this legacy as Master has brought to all of us. And both of them are authors of several books. Right now, they have finished writing a new book, both of them. Jyotish Ji on service and Devi Ji on Swami Kriyananda's mission on Masters, Paramahansa Yogananda. And we are looking forward to those books so that the wisdom and inspiration that they will bring to us will be very precious. So welcome again to all of you and both of you. And now I would like to request you to please lead us into a prayer.
I'll lead us in a prayer and just follow mentally. It's hard to do responsively at a distance. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, great masters of self-realization, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, beloved Guruji, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, we humbly bow to you all. Beloved Master, beloved Swamiji, we lay the flowers of our devotion gratefully at thy feet. We are thankful for this life you have given us, a life with purpose. These teachings give us an understanding of the purpose of life and the purpose of our existence. We are eternally grateful for them. And we are grateful above all for your love and blessings. Help us be pure channels to bring thy light to everyone. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So this evening we're addressing the topic of how to stay persistent on the path. And this is a topic that is very pertinent to everyone. Life has its rhythms, just as the sea with a wave, the waves go up and down. Master said the wave, when it's getting up to the top of the crest, that's a kind of an affirmation of positive energy, and then it crashes down, and then there's a trough, and that's the kind of negative energy. And our energy patterns within ourselves, both physical energy patterns, but more importantly, emotional and mental energy patterns also follow a kind of a wave-like movement. And so as long as things are uh, engaging and pleasant and something that we really want to do, nobody needs to persuade us to be persistent. If we're watching a really engrossing movie and we're right in the middle of it, somebody comes in and says, "You should watch this till the end." Get away, I'm busy watching it. So we don't need to have a sense of persistence when we're already deeply engaged in something. But it's when our energy begins to wane a little bit, as is natural. It's part of life's rhythms. So as the energy begins to wane a little bit, then we have to use our willpower in order to be persistent, to follow through toward our goals, irregardless of the outer circumstances, whether they're pleasant, unpleasant, difficult, easy. We just need to stay very strongly focused on our goals. And I want to talk just briefly about some of the things that help us do that. First of all, is the development of willpower. Master said that willpower is desire plus energy directed at a goal. So let's say you want to walk around the block. So you have to have, first of all, that desire to walk around the block. And then you have to put out the energy to put your sandals on and go out the door and actually make that trip around the block. And if you do that, even on a little project like that, you strengthen your willpower. You strengthen the ability to direct that energy according to your goals. And Master, he must have given 50 lectures, maybe more, in which he touched on this very thing about how important it is to strengthen our willpower and not be deterred by difficult situations. And it starts, as I say, by picking a little project that we know that we have the ability to complete, but then completing it, regardless of whether um, something tries to prevent us or not. We watched a very interesting movie a few weeks ago. It's called Running for Good, and it's a documentary about a British woman who, as a child, had some very difficult problems with her knee and essentially lost all the ligaments in her knee. And so she has a reconstructed knee. And she started running marathons or races because she takes care of a lot of animals. And she found out if she could run, uh, she could get people to sponsor her, and the money would go to the care of all these
The sanctuary.
this pet sanctuary, many dogs and goats, all kinds of animals. Anyway, over time, she became not only a very good runner, but a world champion. Now, this is all on a reconstructed knee that is painful all the time. And so it's not something, she said, I don't really enjoy running. I do it because it helps the animals. And she has won some of the most difficult races in the world. And she even relatively recently completed a marathon on every continent in within 1 month. So that includes Antarctica. And so she had to run a marathon in Antarctica. And she completed that, not only completed it, but set a world record for someone of her age. But the point here being is that she has enormous power of will. And she just does not let anything, any condition deter her from once she sets a goal, she goes for it no matter what. Well, that's an extreme example. It's in some ways an inspiring example. In some ways, you think this lady's crazy, because running extreme, difficult terrain is not necessarily the highest goal. But the power of will that is behind it is very, very important on the spiritual path. So coming back to something that's more apt to our lives, there are certain habit patterns that we either should develop or we should drop. And those habit patterns have been built up sometimes by countless activities of the past, either in past lives or in this life. And so once we decide to start a habit or to give up a habit, it's very important that we do not let our will be broken. Now, Swami talked about the fact that giving up smoking is hard for many people to do. And he smoked, as did I. I'll tell my story in just a moment, but first his. He said that even though he would try to give up smoking and it wouldn't work, and he would again smoke, he said he never in his mind said, I've failed. He always said, I haven't succeeded yet. There's a humorist named Mark Twain who said, giving up smoking is easy to do. I've done it 1,000 times, meaning that he just kept repeating after he gave it up. Well, I was a smoker also, not unlike Swami, and I smoked up until the day that I went to work for Swami. And I knew that I could not be in that environment with him and smoke cigarettes. So I made a very powerful determination that I was going to give up smoking. It was difficult for about 2 weeks and it got easier. And then any desire completely passed. But the point I'm making here is that habits can be broken quickly if you have very strong motivation to do so, or habits can be formed quickly if you are very strongly motivated to accomplish something. And that should be true of our spiritual life. We should be highly motivated to advance spiritually or expand our commitment spiritually. On the other hand, we aren't always highly motivated, and we can be guaranteed that life will throw challenges at us as soon as we make a determination. Partly it's because of these rhythms that I have described, but also partly it is just God's way of testing and getting us to strengthen our willpower. And I'll just end by saying that relatively recently we've started something called the Future Saints Club. And it's very simple. If you want to join, you're welcome to. But the Future Saints Club is very simple. You make a vow between yourself and God, and you keep that vow for a period of at least 1 month. You can continue on after that. It's only between you and God. But so you make the vow, and then the second part of it is you do something to hold yourself accountable. I've suggested that generally for people, they either have a buddy system or they write in a journal. And my first vow, because I hadn't been journaling, was to write in a journal my vow to God. That was the first vow. Now I've moved on to other ones, but the point being, in the Future Saints Club, you decide on something that you yourself choose, that you know that you should do or that you should not do. And then you make a vow to God. Don't make it too big, make it doable, but follow through, and that will increase your willpower until the will can be enormously strong and undeterred by anything. And so being persistent on the spiritual path means the ability to continue to have an energy flow through you, irregardless of outer circumstances. And the last thing that I'll say is that as we do this more and more, we realize that it is not our energy that is flowing, it's God's energy. And we aren't really the doer, God is the doer. But we have the ability to serve as a switch. Our decision-making power or willpower serves as a switch to allow God's energy to flow through us, or we cut it off. And it's really as simple as that. But then it gets complex because it isn't always easy to follow good spiritual advice, even though it might be good, as I've just given. Of course, it's good. Okay.
Thank you, Jyotish. Well, I thought I would start my little sharing portion with reading a beautiful poem by our guru, and it's very much to this question. It's called If You Want His Answer. Whether he replies or not, keep calling him, ever calling in the chamber of continuous prayer. Whether he comes or not, believe he is ever approaching nearer to you with each command of your heart's love. Whether he answers or not, keep entreating him, even if he makes no reply in the way you expect. Ever know that in some subtle way he will respond. In the darkness of your deepest prayers, know that with you he is playing hide and seek. And in the midst of the dance of life, disease, and death, if you keep calling him, undepressed by his seeming silence, you will receive his answer. So, as usual, Master says it better than we can. But I think that's the reason persistence, how to stay persistent on the spiritual path. It's really a false question because the spiritual path is persistence. If you don't have persistence, you won't stay. And so when you come on the path, even at the beginning, that's why this little exercise, the Future Saints Club, it's good to set goals and keep to them. Don't, every time you set a goal and you follow through, you put a pillar of strength in your castle to find God, your inward home in God. Every time you walk away from a goal, every time you say, okay, this morning I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes. And then after 5 minutes, you get restless and think of something you need to do. Every time you back away from a goal, you diminish your um, your determination, your willpower. You identify with a weakness. And so the spiritual path is not for short distance runners. It's for long distance runners. And when you take the vow of discipleship or Kriya, and we saw the pictures of the new Kriya bonds from this weekend in Bangalore, when you take that vow, we say, I will practice Kriya Yoga faithfully and regularly. And this should be your vow for meditation, faithfully and regularly. And not just meditation, but your whole life. It should be one of, I have given this life, I have found my guru. I have a long way to go, I know, to become one with him. But each step I take brings me closer. And there will be forces against you, forces to stop you. We know it's happened so many times. People tell us the story that they were just about the next day, they'd made plans, they were giving up their life in the world, they were going to move to Ananda ashram, and it was all set. One girl said she just had her bags packed, she was leaving in the morning, and then they get a call. Either the job they were waiting for is offered to them, a wonderful new apartment is available for them, whatever it is, but it's like the testing of the world. And when you make a commitment the world will test you. You know, Master said that the satanic force, the dark force, is a conscious force, a conscious entity whose goal it is to draw people away from God. And when we make a commitment to, not in a scary way, I'm not saying this to scare you, but it's a true thing that when you come on the path, very often it gets very hard at first, that all you're challenged and you don't know what to do and so forth. But just to remember that the spiritual path and persistence go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other, because finding God is not done in the blink of an eye. It takes many lifetimes, in fact, but in this one lifetime, now Master told us, he said, once you come to this path, once you receive Kriya Yoga, you are very close to the end of all the cycles of reincarnation if you stick with it. And so we need to really understand that once we pick up the banner, I am seeking God, we need to keep that banner aloft, no matter what, no matter what. And I'll just close. That's why the whole beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the story of the soul's movement from bondage to freedom, the whole beginning is the despondency of Arjuna. I can't do this. It's too hard. I'm going to give up. And then what happens? Our Krishna begins speaking as if smiling, and he tells them the Dharma of seeking God. He tells them that it's our destiny. You can run away from it, but it will always come back to you. And so this is really the core of the spiritual life, to make that determination no matter what happens. And believe me, every single one of us who are part of this satsang, every one of us will be tested, our determination. It goes hand in hand with the commitment to find God. And so, but if we can say, nothing will stand in my way, and then just as the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, you are very dear to me, and my love is always with you. Come. And this will be the end of our story as well. So now we will see if Amit and Anandita have questions that they would like to ask us, and we can discuss them with you.
Thank you, Jyotishji and Deviji, for such a beautiful inspiration. And what Jyotishji has come up with, the idea of Future Saints Club, it's a great way and a reminder that God is the doer. If we join that club, everything that we do can come from that space if we are in it and for it. And as well as Deviji brought Master. So you both blended very well God and Guru, the discipleship, of course, and not to give up no matter what on the path, the determination. So these are very nice takeaways for all of us. Thank you. Now we will have few questions for you. The first question I would like to ask on behalf of the devotees. You know, sometimes some devotees approach us and they see us full-time serving at Ananda and living in the community, and they say, oh wow, you can do this full-time. You are very lucky, you're fortunate. And they say, but for us, you know, out in the material world where we are, it's very hard, it's very difficult to live these teachings, to even practice the techniques. So what advice would you give them, that if their dharma and karma in this life is not to serve full time with Ananda or live in the community and be in the world and do their duties?
That's a very good question. You know, it's true that it is very good karma to be able to live in an ashram and be in a very supportive environment. But the really key difference is that being in an ashram with other devotees, you have the magnetism of their thought form helping you achieve the goals that you have spiritually. And for people who are in the world, by and large, they do not have a positive magnetism helping support them. And sometimes they have a negative magnetism trying to pull them away from it, away from their spiritual commitments. So it is, generally speaking, harder. You can only generalize because for some people it's not harder. But generally speaking, it is harder. So, how to work with that dynamic? First of all, Devi touched on, the despondency of Krishna, and then of Arjuna, and then Krishna urges him to fight. But Master's explanation of the Bhagavad Gita says that who is Arjuna fighting against? It's an allegory that all of the Kauravas are parts of our own self. They're tendencies within our own self. So where is the battle to be on the spiritual path? The battle is really against our own tendencies. And yes, it's helpful to have an environment that supports the good tendencies and perhaps helps demagnetize our negative tendencies. But we have to understand that the battle is within our own self. It really ultimately has nothing to do with the environment around us, except that can have an influence. But the battle is our own inner battle. And why is it hard? Because we're pulled in two different directions. Devi said that there is a conscious force, Satan, or Maya, that is trying to pull us away from union with God. And there certainly is a conscious force doing that. But there's also a conscious force within each of us individually that doesn't really want the spiritual goals. It's the pull of the ego, the pull of Maya, the pull of former past habits, and so on. And so it's that inner battle that we're fighting. And so, coming back to the question, if you're not in a supportive environment, then you have to put out stronger willpower. I would say it's very, very important to set a few habits that you will not break. It's easiest for most people, to meditate at a certain time in the morning and a certain time in the evening. And after a little bit of time, that habit pattern allows a pattern to get going that is easier for you to continue. So set a habit pattern that you don't break. And then the last thing I'll say is that even though your general environment may not be supportive, you always have Guru by friends or other seekers that you can connect with. And so find a support system within your circle of either the center that you're close to or online Sangha, something. There's plenty of support if you want it.
Yeah. I just want to reiterate that not one of you is very far from support from devotees through online classes and satsangs and all the different activities at the center and so forth. And one thing I would add to that, it's very, very good to find ways to serve. So if you can, in your local center or even in your area, just to find ways that you can do things that have no personal benefit to you, but just totally nishkam karma, action without any desire for the fruit. And then I'll just close with, look at our line of gurus. Lahiri went up into the Himalayas to receive Kriya from Babaji, begged his guru to let him stay. And he said, no, you must go back to the world to be an example for those men and women with worldly responsibilities to show that the highest states of attainment can still be achieved if one is living with worldly responsibilities. And in the autobiography of a yogi, Master writes, if one is able, this is a paraphrase, it's not a direct quote, but it's capturing the essence of what he said, that if while in the midst of fulfilling worldly responsibilities, if the person is still seeking God and seeking union with God, that's a higher path than simply giving up the world. And that was Swami pointed that out to us. It's not what's commonly understood, but even though, some of us have the karma as our center leaders in Pune and Hyderabad and Mumbai, all our different centers, that's what they do. But it does, working in a worldly job, having a family, children, parents to take care of, none of these can be a deterrent if you see it all as service to God. So next question.
Thank you. Thank you again for reminding also of Lahari Mahashayaji. Again, I think looking at him, he gives us a high bar, what is possible.
Yeah.
And also making it practical through the online Sangha. Again, we should thank to the Dwapara age where we are all living. So Satsang is at the tip of our fingers, but we should be able to click on that. That is also true. So I have also another question, which is also sort of going through stages of spiritual path. In the beginning, I think this is sort of a universal phenomenon. There is a grace, and as a result, though we are talking about persistence, in the beginning it feels like a very easy. The spiritual path sort of feels deceptively simple, if I may use that word. But inevitably, I think what happens is the challenges surface, and then life poses some conundrums which were not there earlier. And all of a sudden, the confidence or the experience that the one is having is all of a sudden now shifting. And that sort of creates like a very complicated period or sort of a questioning period for a devotee. So what is the right way to look at it? Or sometimes we also use this word called dry period. So how do we look at it in the right way and then go through that?
Interesting. Thank you, Amit. Interesting. Master addressed exactly this. He said at the beginning of the spiritual path, your past karma, that he actually used the image, the soldiers of your past karma, good karma, of the spiritual soldiers of your past spiritual efforts come forward and help you in that first battle or that first series of battles. But then they retire into the background because you have to, if always your past karma is taking on the burden for you, you don't advance. So your soldiers of past karma retire into the background, and then you have to begin to fight the battle. So that's exactly what you were describing. It may seem easy or obvious that I should be doing this and be a spiritual person. That's your past karma, like a bank account, but you're spending that bank account. And now you have to start building up a new bank account. And that takes the effort, just exactly what we're talking about. It takes energy, it takes effort, it takes commitment, and it takes persistence. Because think of it like interest in a bank account. It only adds up slowly, slowly, slowly. But if you stay with it after a period of years, that compound interest can make you very wealthy. So, but you have to keep, here we're talking, of course, not monetarily wealthy, we're talking spiritually wealthy. That if you keep persistent on the spiritual path, your good karma and your spiritual samskars grow stronger and stronger until they become very powerful. And then then they will help you. But the last thing that I'll address also is that each of us are attracted into the environment that we need for our spiritual growth. So those who might be living in an ashram, which of the proportion is not very many, that's right for their spiritual growth. For those who aren't, the place that you find yourself right now is the place you, with your karma and God, with Him trying to help you advance, has placed you there, just as Babaji sent Lihari back to the accounting books in Benares, Varanasi.
Thank you, Jyotish. Well, this is such a good question because I think there's not a person who takes up the spiritual path that doesn't hit this barricade, so to speak. And, when you first, say, read autobiography or hear, Swami, a lecture of Swami, or whatever it is that brings you onto the path, there's usually like a rejoicing within because we've been looking for this. I know when I came to Ananda and heard many years ago and heard Swami Kriyananda speak, I thought, oh, this is what I've been looking for my whole life. These are the answers to what life is about that I was searching for. And I was so happy to finally, this makes sense out of life and what the purpose of life is. So I think there's the initial kind of enthusiasm and excitement about finally finding and finding your guru. It's like, wow, now I have a safe harbor, a guide to God. But then you have to do the work. And it's like that initial enthusiasm won't get you there. It's just the beginning of it. It's like pushing off from a shore in a little boat. And, you take off and the wind is in your sails and you're very excited about it all. But then the wind dies down and maybe the currents are pushing back against you and it becomes difficult. But I think the most important thing is to remember is that we cannot perceive our own spiritual growth. Little by little we do, but I remember years ago we were riding, I've told this story before, but we were riding in a car with Swamiji. I was in the back seat. I think Jyotish was driving and Swami was in the passenger seat. And Swamiji was talking about all the changes, the positive changes that he had seen in people. And usually I wouldn't say anything like this, but something just blurted out of my mouth. I said, well, I don't think I've changed very much in all these years. This was maybe 10 years that I had been at Ananda. And Swami got very adamant about it. He said, how can you say that? You're an entirely different person than when you came. Well, I couldn't tell that. And to me, it just seemed like I was trying every day. I was meditating. I was doing my kriyas, but I didn't see much change. And so the point that I'm making is when you hit those dry spells, a lot of it is because you're thinking, I'm not making any progress here. What's the good of all this? I'm wasting my time. I'm still the same reactive, negative, angry, whatever it is, person that I was, but you're not. We can't see it so clearly. So don't Master said too, when you plant a seed, don't dig it up all the time to see if it's growing. Let it take root, let it shoot upwards. And so with our own spiritual life, don't let discouragement say, I don't think I'm improving. That's one of the biggest obstacles. You just say, I don't care. I'm not measuring. I'm not in this for, I'll meditate so much, God, and then I'm not a merchant, and you give me this much back. No, I give this to you, and it's yours. My efforts to find God, my love for you, I give it to you. And if I, just like that poem we read, if nothing ever comes back, I keep giving it to you. And so, really, when you hit those periods, those dry spells, it's a very, very important time to say, come what may, I continue on this journey.
I'll just add here a little humorous kind of footnote. Many years ago, we were giving a class, week-long class on Patanjali, and there was a man in the class who had a very clever wit. And so at the end of the week, we were going around in a circle sharing. Everybody was sharing what they got out of the week-long course. And this man said, you know, when I came here, I was very confused. Said, I'm still confused, but at a much higher level. And so it is that we think that we're just going to break into complete clarity, but we're still struggling, but we're struggling at a much higher level. And so it's, well, it's an amusing story. It's also got some truth to it.
And I see someone just posted on the chat, Bana Bana Banja. Yes, doing, one day done. That's
Right.
the point. And we can't dig it up to say, is it done yet? Is it done yet? You just keep doing. But I do want to add, it becomes more and more joyful and more fulfilling and more motivating. So it isn't like it just is always this grim, okay, I have to do it. No. It, after a while, you do start seeing the changes in yourself, and you do start seeing your higher self becoming the dominant factor in your life.
Thank you. As Jyotishi said that we need to increase the bank balance in our spiritual account. So it's a good check for all of us. If something is not working out, we need to put out more energy and willpower. And as Devi ji also continuously, actually persistently sharing in her answers that no matter what, we never give up or stop. In those periods, we just continue with what we can do without thinking of the fruits of that action. So thank you for the answer. So the next question that we have on for all of us is our master has given an equation that 25% is self-effort, 25% is Guru's effort on our behalf, and 50% is the grace of God. We all know the 25% what efforts we need to do, but what are the key attitudes while doing those 25% effort, the equation, to complete that equation of a devotee?
That's a very good question. You know, even though you hear that formula, 25% is our effort and 25% the guru, 50% God, our part of that 25% needs to be as much effort as we are able to put out. Think of it kind of like a sailor on a ship. He's busy, very busy, raising the sails and steering the ship and making sure that everything is seaworthy. And he's really working hard in order to keep the ship moving. But the guru and the grace of God are the wind in the sails that's pushing him. So he's got to be busy allowing that wind to push him. And so it is, our willingness to do what we can allows God's grace to be able to come in. If we don't do our part, it's God has given us free will. And so if we by our activities say, I'm not very interested, I'm not going to do very much, I'll just do a minimum, then God says, okay, he's willing to receive a minimum. I'll give him a cupful of water. But the person that says, I really, really want this, I'm going to do everything I can, then God's grace goes behind him. And Master, in his early years, the first disciple in America that he met was Dr. Lewis. And Dr. Lewis came to him on Christmas Eve and asked if Master could show him the spiritual eye. He'd read about it. Master did. And then Dr. Lewis wanted to follow him. Master said, will you give me your complete love, your unconditional love? I give you mine. And Dr. Lewis said yes. And Master said, will you give me your unconditional obedience, meaning doing what I ask you to do? And even though Dr. Lewis paused a bit, he agreed. And he wrote later that Master rubbed his hands together like that, just joyfully, and said, now I can come and take charge of your life. But it takes the agreement, and more than agreement, it takes the willpower and determination on the part of the individual in order to overcome the barrier of God not wanting to trespass on our own free will. And so we have to do everything that we can.
And it's more than just doing what we do. It's as though when we take up the spiritual life, even if we're in the world with family responsibilities, etc., it's like we put a different lens in front of us and we see the world in a different way, so that everything you do, the people you meet by chance, the stranger you help onto the bus, the being respectful to the negative person at work, being patient with your reactive children, everything we do it through the filter of, I am seeing this as God coming to me in this way. And so you try to, so it isn't with tension. This is an important point. 100% of our effort. Remember when Swami was early on the path, he was trying so hard to meditate and he didn't feel like he was getting results. And he asked Master, am I not trying hard enough? And Master said, you're trying too hard. It's creating tension. And that's a very interesting thing to bear in mind when we're talking about persistence. It's not tension. It's not, I have to do this, but it's seeing everything through the lens of your search for God. And the more you try to do this, the more, when you're out of attunement with that, if you say something, if you're in a conversation, if you react in a certain way that isn't an attunement, immediately you feel that's not right. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't do that. And then you just try to bring it back always to in the context of your spiritual life. I think that's a better way to think of it than just, determined willpower, which we can burn ourselves out that way, but just calm determination to let your goal of seeking God learn something from every single thing that happens to you in life. We had a beautiful encounter just today. We were at a certain, we have these beautiful gardens at Ananda Village. They're not in full bloom yet, but people are starting to come. And Jyotish and I drove down to the central part of the community where our mailroom is to pick up our mail. And then this car pulled up beside us, and there were people, obviously, we didn't know who they were, and they got out and they looked really confused. And we said, can we help you? They didn't speak very good English. I'm not sure where they were from. Maybe Philippines. I'm not sure. We didn't ask. But he said something, and then I couldn't understand him. And then he got out his phone and Crystal Hermitage Gardens. And we said, oh, okay. And we said, and we weren't going there. We were in a different part. We said, follow us. We'll take you there. So they got in their car. We drove them over to the gardens. They got out. They were so grateful. The woman was just hugging me and hugging me. I mean, it was not a big thing that we did, but it was just like, I use this example because seeing everything oh, we can help these people. They've driven a long distance. They just want to, it's no trouble for us to show them where the gardens are. But I just felt so happy afterwards. But again, just to look at everything that happens in your life in the context of your search for God. And that's to me what 100% of our effort means.
And in many ways, as you move along the spiritual path, the primary thing becomes attunement with Master. And if you just ask yourself, what would Master do in this situation? So coming back to that incident today, here are people lost. What would Master do? Would he say, oh, tough luck, I'm leaving, I've got my business to do? He would say, how can I help you? And then he would take an extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes to help that person. It doesn't take very much effort, but doing that and doing it repeatedly brings you in attunement with God and Guru. So ask yourself, what would God do in this situation? What would Master do in this situation? And then act accordingly.
Thank you. This is very, very helpful. Rather than thinking this whole persistence, like I'm going to be persistent from now forever for the rest of my life, which becomes like a very strong, it is not about the strong, grim determination, but as Deviji said, it is a calm determination. And I think Jyotishji also says attunement is not, it is both of them actually, you said it is a situation to situation basis. So we can't plan from now till henceforth and forever. But what can I do in these situations? How can I bring something like my 100% in this situation with what I have within me and whatnot? Thank you. Beautiful. I have one question. It probably would be our last question. But it is also very interesting because both of you talked about marathon. And then this question is about marathon. The spiritual marathon, as we talk about spiritual life, generally, it is considered as a marathon as opposed to sprint. And Jyotishji was, or probably is a marathon runner. I don't know to a certain extent, yes. But
Also,
so,
as well.
Yeah, Davy
so
ran a marathon too.
oh, yeah. I am feeling so nice today. I never felt proud that I was a smoker, but today, for completely wrong reasons, I'm feeling good about it. But there is a good end to that story, just like Jyotishji and Swamiji left. I also did. But I also ran half marathon. So yeah, again, I'm feeling even much better about it. But so when we run marathon, actually, there is this hydration or energy breaks from time to time. People give you little water or something so that it keeps you going for the rest of the time because it is actually long, long run. So when we are running on this spiritual path, the spiritual marathon, what could be those hydration or energy breaks that one could take, which will keep one going?
Yeah, good question. Well, I would say the first and perhaps most important is satsang. Obviously, in a marathon, you are doing the running. So you're putting out your part of the energy. That's like you're meditating. And you're meditating if you're running a marathon to try to get your own personal best record. You're putting out as much energy as you're capable of putting. There are others who are faster and better runners. They're putting out their energy, but you're putting out your energy. So the question is, in this instance, is not whether you're putting out sufficient energy, it's what is going to help you sustain that. And so satsang will help you sustain that. Taking occasional longer breaks, maybe seclusion. I read and then wrote a blog about the amazing benefits of 3 days of silence. This is a scientifically studied that after 3 days of keeping silent, your faculties, your memory improves, your taste sensitivity, your senses improve, your ability to recall life events and challenges, all of that improves from 3 days of silence. So satsang, having occasional seclusion or breaks of silence, those are boosts to your own effort. And there are a number of others, but that and calling on the grace of God and Guru, I would say those three: grace of God and Guru, satsang, and then occasional periods of time, kind of like coasting in a marathon, to allow your energy to revive itself.
You know, I'm going to answer. I'm going to say something that isn't in direct response to this question, but it's an important concept we haven't really developed very much. How to stay persistent, and I'll be brief. But in the equation, it's 20. The search for God is 25% our effort, 25% the Guru's grace on our behalf, and 50% the grace of God. I want to stress, so the whole of the spiritual path, the union with God, it's only 25% what we do. And so I want to stress that I really, from my own experience, I know very powerfully that if it had not been for the grace of God, I probably would have drifted off. I probably would not, no matter how much determined I was. And I'm a determined person. But it's the grace of God. That's that line in Master's poem, Samadhi, by deeper, longer, thirsty, guru-given meditation. Very important. We think we're doing it, but we're not. We think we're determined, but it's God that's pouring that energy into us to stay on the path. It's God that's lifting us up when we fall. And so we should never forget that. And that's such a relief to know, Lord, I may be fragile and lack the willpower to do what I want to do, but with you guiding me, I will persevere till the end. And there's a beautiful story, and I'll just close with this. It's kind of a metaphor, not a true story. But a man was walking along the shore, right along the waves on the wet sand, and he saw another set of. He looked behind him, and there was two sets of footprints behind him, his own, and then another. And then he thought, well, who are these second set of footprints? And then he intuitively understood that it was God walking with him. And then a big storm came out at sea, and a huge tsunami wave came crashing on the shore. And the man was struggling and floundering. And then finally that wave withdrew, and he looked behind. And even though he had been walking forward, there was only one set of footprints. And then when things got calm again, he looked and he saw there were two. And then he asked God, where were you when it was so difficult, when I was being tossed and thrown? And God said, don't you understand that one set of footprints were not yours? Those were mine. I was carrying you through that difficult period. So always remember that the ability, you cannot put one foot in front of the other on the spiritual path without the grace of God. And as long as we remember that, no matter what happens, we have to do our best. We can't coast along. But if we do our best, the grace of God will take us to the safe shores of union with him.
And in fact, the real formula should be stated this way: 100% of the spiritual path is the grace of God, but 25% he's pretending to be you, and another 25% he's pretending to be the guru helping you, and the 50% he's pretending to be himself. But he's doing it all, and so, because honestly, at the end of the day, there is nothing going on except God's drama, God's Leela.
That's well put.
Yes.
And that felt like the perfect moment to
Yes.
pause for this evening. Yes, Thank you again, both of you. This has been very, very insightful and inspirational. At the same time, I'm sure everyone here and online have good takeaways, and then we'll put our part. Hopefully that will be counted towards that some portion of the 25% and open up the grace that God is trying to shower on all of us. So thank you again, both of you, for taking this time with all of us again and again every month. Could we request you to end us with a healing prayer?
Okay. We'll close with a little prayer for world peace, but it's so nice to see you both. Thank you for hosting us today, and thank you for the wonderful questions and how you presented them. So thank you, and thank you all for everyone online for joining us. And so we'll
after your prayer, we will also like to show whoever is here, and then also invite everyone to open their cameras, and we will also want to share our love. So it's not the end after your prayer.
So let's close our eyes, bring our energy within, up the spine to the spiritual eye. And at that point, try to see or visualize a beautiful blue light projecting outward. And this blue light is the light of God that is filled with peace and harmony and love of all nations. And feel that light spreading throughout India and Asia, throughout the Middle East and Europe. The light of God, of His peace and His harmony and His love and the unity of all people. And feel that light of God spreading east and west, across oceans, across continents, North and South America, from the very northern tip of the globe and the very southern tip of the globe, everywhere. This beautiful blue planet circled in the light of God's peace and harmony and love and unity of all people. And let's offer a prayer. O Divine Mother, may your love shine forever in the hearts of people and awaken them to their own higher self and to their unity with all life. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.